The bitter wind howled across the fjord, carrying with it the scent of salt and iron as Peder Haraldsson stood at the prow of his longship. His knuckles whitened against the carved dragon head as the vessel cut through the churning waters of the North Sea. Behind him, 30 of his father's most loyal warriors huddled against the spray, their shields lashed to the gunwales, their spirits as dampened as their beards. "Land ahead," called Gunnar from his perch. "The cliffs of Northumbria." Peder nodded grimly. This raid was not like the others. His father, Jarl Harald the Unyielding, lay dying back in their settlement at Vestfold. The summer's campaigns had yielded little, and winter approached with empty storehouses. The Jarl had entrusted his only son with this final raid of the season, a test of leadership that Peder could not fail. "Ready yourselves," Peder commanded, his voice carrying over the wind. He adjusted the gold arm ring that marked him as a prince among his people, a gift from his father upon his 20th winter. "We strike before dawn." As the warriors prepared their weapons, Peder gazed at the looming coastline. The Christians called these lands holy, protected by their singular god. Yet their monasteries brimmed with silver and gold, offerings to a deity who seemed unable to protect his treasures from Norse steel. The longship slipped silently into a hidden cove as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. Peder led his men ashore, their footfalls muffled by the wet sand. They would rest briefly before making their way to the monastery perched atop the cliffs. "Remember," Peder whispered as they gathered in the shadow of the rocks, "we take what we need: gold, silver, food stores. Kill only those who resist. The Saxons have paid tribute to my father for 3 summers. This is merely a reminder of our arrangement." The men nodded, their faces grim in the dim light. They understood the stakes: their families would starve without a successful raid. Yet something troubled Peder's thoughts. The omens before their departure had been mixed. The Volva, their settlement Cirrus, had cast the bones and spoken cryptically, "The treasure you seek is not what you believe. Freya's hand guides your journey to a fate bound in blood and oath." As the moon climbed higher, Peder led his warriors up a narrow path worn by shepherds. The monastery lay just beyond the ridge, its stone walls silhouetted against the night sky. But as they crested the hill, Peder raised his hand, halting the column of men. "Something is wrong," he murmured. The monastery stood silent, too silent. No lights flickered from windows, no chanting of monks carried on the night air. "Perhaps they've fled," suggested Bjorn, his axe already in hand. "Word of Viking ships travels faster than the wind these days." Peder frowned. "Spread out. Approach with caution." They advanced toward the stone structure, moving like shadows across the open ground. Peder reached the heavy wooden doors first, finding them splintered and hanging from leather hinges. Inside, the scene confirmed his suspicions. "We are too late," he announced as his men gathered around him. "Someone has beaten us to our prize." The monastery had been thoroughly plundered. Altars stripped, storerooms emptied. The few monks who remained lay slaughtered in their sleeping quarters. But the method of their deaths gave Peder pause. These men had not been killed by Norse weapons. "Saxons," spat Gunnar, examining a distinctive arrow embedded in a wooden beam. "The Mercians, by the look of it." Peder cursed under his breath. Civil war among the Saxon kingdoms was common, but it had cost them their bounty. "Search for anything overlooked," he ordered, frustration evident in his voice. "We cannot return empty-handed." As his men combed the ruins, Peder walked the perimeter, studying the surrounding landscape in the moonlight. His eyes fell upon a narrow trail leading away from the monastery toward a steep cliff face. Curiosity drew him forward. The path wound through gorse and heather before disappearing into a crevice in the rock, a natural entrance partly hidden by tangled vines. Peder hesitated only briefly before ducking inside, his hand on his Sikh's knife. The passage widened into a cave, and Peder was surprised to find the soft glow of a fire illuminating the space. His hand tightened on his weapon as he moved cautiously forward. Then he saw her. A woman sat beside the small fire, her back straight, her hands calm in her lap. She wore a simple woolen dress in the Saxon style, but around her neck hung an amulet that caught Peder's attention immediately: Mjolnir, Thor's hammer, a symbol of his people. I have been waiting for you, Northman, she said in perfect Norse, her voice melodious yet strong. Peder's knife remained half-drawn. Who are you that speaks the tongue of the Norse? The woman raised her face to his, and Peder found himself looking into eyes the color of a summer sea. Her hair, partially covered by a linen headcloth, was the rich auburn of autumn leaves. I am Thora, she replied. Some call me Thora Wise Weaver. A Saxon with a Norse name. Peder questioned, suspicious. She smiled slightly. Names, like people, are rarely what they first appear. Peder studied her more carefully. Though dressed as a Saxon, something in her bearing spoke of Norse heritage. Why are you hiding in this cave while your monastery burns? Not my monastery, she corrected. And I am not hiding. I am waiting. Waiting for what? For the son of Harald the Unyielding to find me. Peder's blood ran cold. He fully unsheathed his knife now. How do you know who I am? Thora gestured to a place across the fire. Sit, Peder Haraldsson. The tale I must tell is not short, and your men will not find you for some time. Against his better judgment, Peder sat, though he kept his weapon ready. Speak then, Thora Wise Weaver. But know that if this is some Saxon trap, you will not live to see the dawn. If I wished you harm, I would have let the Mercian war party know of your approach. They left only hours ago. She reached into a leather pouch at her side and withdrew a small bundle wrapped in cloth. I believe you sailed here seeking treasure. Perhaps this will interest you more than monastery gold. She unwrapped the bundle to reveal a small carved piece of whalebone, a chess piece, a queen, its features worn smooth by handling. Peder's breath caught. That belongs to my father. It was taken when your mother's ship was lost 12 winters ago, Thora finished. Yes, I know. Anger and confusion warred within Peder. How came you by this? My mother's body was never found. Because she did not die at sea as your father believes. Thora's eyes held his steadily. She was taken captive by Saxon raiders, brought to these shores, and sold to a Mercian lord as a thrall. Lies, hissed Peder, though doubt had already taken root. My mother was Astrid, daughter of Jarl Sigurd the Bold. No Saxon would dare. Your mother was with child when the ship was taken, Thora continued calmly. The child was born in captivity. A daughter. Peder fell silent, his mind reeling. His mother had indeed been with child when she set out to visit her family in the northern settlements. A journey from which she never returned. If what you say is true, he said finally, his voice hoarse, where is my mother now? Sorrow passed over Thora's face. She died 3 winters ago. The life of a thrall is harsh, and she never recovered her strength after a fever took hold. And this daughter? This sister I never knew. Thora held his gaze. She survived. Raised in a Saxon household, but never forgetting the stories her mother whispered to her of Asgard, of Thor and Odin, of her true heritage and her brother who would one day be a great Jarl. Understanding dawned slowly, like the first light breaking over the fjords. You, Peder breathed. You claim to be my sister. Thora nodded once. I am Thora, daughter of Astrid, daughter of Sigurd the Bold, sister to Peder Haraldsson. Before Peder could respond, shouts echoed from the cave entrance. His men had found his tracks. Prince Peder, called Gunnar's voice. Are you there? Peder hesitated only briefly before calling back. Here. I am unharmed. He turned back to Thora, his mind racing. If you speak truth, you must return with me to Vestfold. My father deserves to know before he journeys to Valhalla. I cannot simply leave, she protested. My Saxon guardian, your place is with your people, Peder insisted as footsteps approached. Unless your words are false. Thora's eyes flashed. I have lived 12 winters with the knowledge of who I am, Peder Haraldsson. I have endured being called heathen, being forced to pray to the Christian God while holding my mother's stories in my heart. I do not lie about my blood. When Gunnar and 2 other warriors entered the cave, weapons drawn, they found their prince engaged in tense conversation with a Saxon woman. My prince? Gunnar questioned, eyeing Thora suspiciously. This woman comes with us, Peder announced, rising to his feet. She is under my protection. A Saxon thrall asked one of the men, his tone suggesting a common fate for women captured in raids. No, Peder replied firmly. A free woman with information valuable to my father. She will not be harmed. He turned to Thora. Gather what belongings you wish to bring. We sail with the tide. Dawn was breaking as they returned to the longship, the monastery yielding little beyond a few overlooked silver cups and some provisions. The men grumbled about the meager haul until Peder reminded them that they had lost no warriors and would live to raid another day. Thora stood at the shore, a small bundle of possessions clutched to her chest, her expression unreadable as she looked at the dragon-headed vessel that would carry her away from the only land she had known since childhood. Have you sailed before? Peder asked as they waded into the surf. Only in dreams, she answered, though my mother taught me to swim in the rivers here, saying a true Norse child must not fear the water. The journey north was arduous, the autumn seas growing more treacherous with each passing day. Peder watched as Thora gradually earned a measure of respect from his men. She did not complain about the hard wooden benches or the salt spray that soaked them all. Instead, she helped prepare meals from their scant provisions and surprised them with her knowledge of navigation by the stars, knowledge passed down from her mother. One evening, as they sheltered in a small inlet to wait out a storm, Peder found Thora sitting apart from the others, staring out at the churning sea. You should rest, he said, sitting beside her on a fallen log. The crossing to Vestfold will be difficult if this weather holds. I have dreamed of crossing this sea my whole life, she replied. Now that I am here, I find myself afraid. Of the journey? She shook her head. Of what awaits at its end? Your father has built a life without us. He has mourned my mother and never known of me. What if he rejects me as a reminder of his loss? Peder considered this. My father is a hard man, shaped by battle and grief. But he has never stopped honoring my mother's memory. Each midwinter, he makes offerings to her spirit. Each summer, he speaks her name during the blot sacrifices. And what of you, brother? Thora asked quietly. Do you accept me? Peder studied her face in the dying light. He saw his mother there, in the curve of her jaw, the set of her eyes. But he also saw something of himself, something of their shared blood. I have known you mere days, he answered honestly. Trust does not come easily to those who have seen betrayal. But I see our mother in you, and I hear truth in your voice. He paused. The gods have placed you in my path for a reason, Thora wise weaver. I would be a fool to ignore their design. The storm passed, and they continued northward. As they approached the Norse settlements, Peder noticed Thora standing straighter, her eyes drinking in the sight of the fjords and mountains of her ancestral home. It's just as she described, Thora whispered as the longship entered the deep waters of the Vestfjord. She said the mountains touch the sky, and the water reflects them like polished silver. When they finally beached the ship on the shores of Vestfold, a crowd gathered to meet them. Word had spread of the prince's return, and faces fell when they saw how lightly laden the vessel was. But whispers spread quickly about the strange woman who walked at Peder's side, neither thrall nor servant. Peder led Thora directly to the great hall, where his father's steward met them with a grave expression. The Jarl weakens by the hour, my prince, he said. The healers say he may not last the night. Peder nodded grimly. I must see him now. And she comes with me, he added when the steward cast a questioning glance at Thora. They found Jarl Harald propped up on furs in his sleeping chamber, his once powerful frame now withered. His eyes, however, remained sharp as they fixed on his son. You return early, the old man rasped. And with little to show for it, I'd wager. The monastery was raided before we arrived, Peder explained, kneeling beside his father's bed. But I bring something of greater value than gold or silver. Harald's gaze shifted to Thora, who stood hesitantly at the chamber's entrance. A Saxon woman? Have you lost your wits, boy? Father, Peder said carefully, this is Thora. She was born of our people, though raised among Saxons. He paused, then continued. She is the daughter of Astrid, your wife. A heavy silence fell over the room. Harald's breath came in short gasps as he stared at Thora. Come closer, he commanded finally. Thora approached and knelt beside Peder. With trembling hands, she withdrew the whalebone chess piece and placed it on the furs. My mother kept this hidden all these years, she said softly. She told me it was carved by her husband's own hand as a wedding gift. Harald's weathered fingers closed around the piece, his knuckles white. Astrid, he whispered. She lived. For many years, Thora confirmed. She was taken captive when Saxon raiders attacked her ship. I was born in Northumbria, but raised on stories of Asgard and Valhalla, of my father the Jarl, and my brother the Prince. Harald's eyes searched her face with an intensity that made even Peder uncomfortable. Then, slowly, the old warrior's expression softened. You have her eyes, he said, his voice breaking. And her spirit, I think, to have survived among our enemies. He looked to his son. You believe her? I do, Peder answered without hesitation. She knows things only mother could have told her. Harald closed his eyes briefly, as if gathering strength. Then the gods have granted me one last gift before I journey to Valhalla. He reached out with a frail hand and touched Thora's cheek. Daughter of my blood, returned from the land of shadows. That night, as Peder stood watch over his father, the old man spoke more than he had in months. He asked countless questions about Astrid's final years, listening intently to every detail Thora could provide. By morning, a strange peace had settled over the Jarl. My son, Harald called weakly as dawnlight filtered through the smoke hole above. Come closer. Peder knelt beside him, aware that his father's strength was failing rapidly. You brought her home, Harald said. You have proven yourself worthy to lead after me. Father, listen, the old man interrupted. Your sister is of our blood, but she has been raised among Christians. There will be those who reject her, who question her place here. You must protect her. I will, Peder promised. And you must find her a worthy husband, one who will strengthen our line. Perhaps Ulf Thorson from the northern settlement. His father and I once spoke of joining our houses. Peder nodded, though something in him rebelled at the thought of so quickly sending away the sister he had only just discovered. Harald's eyes drifted to where Thora slept, curled on a bench across the chamber. She is the last gift from your mother. Honor Astrid's memory by honoring her daughter. I swear it, Peder said solemnly. Harald the Unyielding died as the sun crested the mountains, his hand clasped in his son's, a look of peace upon his face that had been absent for 12 long winters. The days that followed were a blur of ritual and ceremony. Harald was laid in a ship with his weapons, treasures, and even his favorite hunting hounds. Before the vessel was set aflame and pushed out to sea, Peder placed the whalebone chess queen among his father's possessions. To guide him back to mother, he explained to Thora, who stood beside him on the shore, watching the flames reach toward the sky. As the new Jarl, Peder's first acts were met with scrutiny by the Council of Elders. His recognition of Thora as his half-sister and a true daughter of Harald raised eyebrows and sparked whispers throughout the settlement. She was raised by Christians, argued Stein, the eldest council member. How can we trust her to honor our ways? My sister has Norse blood, Peder responded firmly. She will learn our customs, as any child of our people would. But even as he defended her publicly, Peder harbored his own doubts. Thora remained somewhat apart from the other women of the settlement, spending hours alone walking the shoreline or sitting atop the cliffs overlooking the fjord. When she participated in the daily activities, grinding flour, weaving, preparing meals, she did so with skill but little conversation. One evening, as winter's first snow dusted the settlement, Peder found Thora sitting alone outside the great hall, staring up at the stars. You'll catch your death in this cold, he chided gently, draping a fur across her shoulders. The Saxon winters were milder, she admitted. But I find beauty in this harshness. Peder sat beside her. You've been distant since father's funeral. The people notice and wonder. Thora sighed. I am neither fully Norse nor Saxon. In England, I was the thrall's daughter with heathen blood. Here, I am the Christian-raised outsider with questionable loyalties. She turned to face him. Where do I truly belong, brother? Before Peder could answer, hurried footsteps approached. It was Gunnar, his expression grave. Ships approaching from the north, he reported. 3 vessels bearing Ulf Thorson's banner. Peder frowned. Ulf comes unannounced, and with warriors? Strange timing. Father mentioned him, Thora recalled. He spoke of a marriage alliance. Indeed, Peder confirmed. But I sent no invitation. Prepare to receive them, he instructed Gunnar. With hospitality, but have our men ready. The arrival of Ulf Thorson and his party brought an unexpected tension to Vestfold. Ulf was a bear of a man, towering over most warriors, with a thick red beard and calculating eyes. He greeted Peder with proper respect for a new Jarl but made no attempt to hide his true purpose. Your father and mine spoke of joining our houses, he announced during the welcoming feast. I've come to honor that arrangement by taking Harald's daughter as my wife. Murmurs spread through the hall. Peder remained outwardly calm, though anger simmered beneath the surface at Ulf's presumption. My sister has only recently returned to her people, he replied carefully. There has been no formal betrothal. Ulf's eyes narrowed slightly. Yet your father's last wish, I'm told, was to see this union fulfilled. My father wished for a worthy match, Peder corrected. One that would strengthen our line. But the decision now falls to me as Jarl, and to my sister as a freeborn woman of our people. A woman raised by Christians, Ulf noted, loud enough for all to hear. Some question whether she truly understands our ways, or where her loyalties lie. The hall fell silent as all eyes turned to Thora, who sat still as stone beside Peder. I may have been raised away from these shores, she said finally, her voice clear and unwavering, but my mother ensured I never forgot who I am. The blood of Jarls runs in my veins, Ulf Thorson. I need no man to validate my place among my people. A few surprised chuckles broke the tension, and Peder noted with satisfaction the flash of anger in Ulf's eyes. The man was not accustomed to women who spoke their minds so freely. Your sister has spirit, Ulf conceded with a forced smile. All the more reason she would make a fitting wife for a future Jarl. The feast continued, but Peder remained wary. Ulf's arrival with 3 ships of warriors suggested more than a simple marriage proposal. There had always been rivalry between their settlements, kept in check by the respect between their fathers. Now, with Harald gone, perhaps Ulf saw an opportunity to expand his influence. Later that night, as the guests bedded down in the great hall, Peder found Thora in the weaving room, working a loom by lamplight despite the late hour. You should rest, he advised. Ulf will press his case again tomorrow. And what will your answer be? She asked without looking up from her work. Peder hesitated. Father did wish for this match. Then you would send me away so soon. There was hurt in her voice, though her hands never faltered in their rhythm. I would not send you anywhere against your will, Peder assured her. But I must consider what's best for our people. Ulf's settlement controls the northern trade routes. An alliance would bring prosperity. And if I refuse, then I will honor your choice, though it may create tension with Ulf. Thora finally looked up from her weaving. In the years I served in the Mercian lord's household, I learned to watch and listen. Ulf did not come here seeking a wife, brother. The way his men study your defenses, count your warriors, he came to assess your strength as a new Jarl. Peder's expression darkened. You think he plans to challenge me? I think he came expecting to find a grieving son, not a confident leader. The marriage offer is a way to claim influence without bloodshed. She paused. But if you appear weak by too quickly giving away your father's daughter, others may see opportunity. Peder studied his sister with newfound respect. Mother taught you more than just our stories, it seems. She taught me to survive, Thora replied simply. And that sometimes the greatest battles are won without a sword being drawn. The next morning, Peder called Ulf to a private council. The northern chieftain arrived flanked by 2 of his warriors, his posture suggesting he expected to leave with what he came for. "I've considered your proposal," Peder began without preamble. "An alliance between our settlements would indeed benefit both." Ulf smiled broadly. "Then we are agreed. The wedding can take place before we depart." "Not quite," Peder countered. "My sister's hand in marriage is a matter that requires proper negotiation and ceremony. Our customs demand a formal betrothal period, particularly for the daughter of a jarl." Ulf's smile faded. "Your father did not insist on such formalities when we discussed this union years ago." "Perhaps because my sister was presumed dead then," Peder replied coolly. "Circumstances have changed. If you truly wish to honor Harald's memory with this match, you will respect our traditions." Before Ulf could respond, a commotion erupted outside. The door burst open, and Gunnar rushed in. "Saxon ships," he announced breathlessly. "At least 5, entering the fjord." Peder was on his feet instantly. "How far?" "They'll reach our shores before midday." Ulf's hand went to his sword. "Saxons this far north?" "They grow bold." Peder turned to the northern chieftain. "It seems we have more pressing concerns than marriage negotiations. Will you stand with Vestfold against these invaders, Ulf Thorson?" A calculating look crossed Ulf's face as he weighed his options. To refuse would brand him a coward, to agree meant supporting the very leader he had come to test. "My warriors stand ready," he said finally. "Though I wonder what brings Saxons to your doorstep, Jarl Peder." The implication was clear, that somehow this attack was connected to Thora's arrival. Peder chose to ignore it. "Prepare your men," he ordered. "We meet them at the shore." As warriors gathered and women hurried children to safety, Peder found Thora arming herself with a short sword. "This is not your fight," he said, though without much conviction. "These are not random raiders," she replied grimly. "They fly the banner of Lord Edwin of Mercia, the man who owned our mother. Who kept me as a servant in his household. You think they've come for you?" "I'm certain of it. I didn't exactly ask permission before leaving with you." She tested the sword's weight. "Mother taught me how to use this when no one was watching. Said a Norse woman should know how to defend herself." Peder wanted to argue but saw the determination in her eyes. "Stay close to me," he conceded. "But if the battle turns against us, I won't be captured again," she said with quiet intensity. The Saxon ships landed on the beach below the settlement, disgorging warriors in mail hauberks carrying shields painted with the Mercian wolf. At their head rode a man in fine armor atop a nervous horse that struggled in the sandy footing. "Lord Edwin," Thora murmured to Peder as they watched from the ridge above. "He rarely leads raids himself. He must be furious." Peder had positioned his forces, nearly 60 warriors including Ulf's men, along the path leading up from the shore. The steep terrain would work to their advantage, forcing the Saxons to fight uphill. As the Saxon force formed up, a herald rode forward bearing a white cloth. "They wish to parley," Gunnar observed. "Or to demand something," Peder replied. "Let's hear what they have to say." He descended to meet the herald halfway down the path, with Thora and Ulf flanking him. "Lord Edwin of Mercia demands the return of his property," the herald announced in thickly accented Norse. "The woman Thora, unlawfully taken from his household. Return her, and we depart in peace. Refuse, and we will take her by force." "I am no man's property," Thora called out before Peder could respond. "I am Thora, daughter of Jarl Harald, born of Norse blood." The herald's eyes widened at her boldness. "Lord Edwin paid good silver for your mother. Under our law, you belong to him." "She stands on Norse soil now," Peder stated firmly. "Here, she is a freeborn woman under my protection as Jarl. Tell your lord that if he wants her, he must go through every warrior in Vestfold." "And the warriors of the northern settlements," Ulf added unexpectedly, stepping forward. "The daughter of Harald the Unyielding is under our collective protection." Peder glanced at Ulf in surprise but quickly masked it. The herald retreated to confer with his lord, while the Norse leaders returned to their line. I didn't expect you to stand with us so readily, Peder remarked to Ulf as they climbed back up the ridge. Ulf shrugged. No Saxon law dictates terms to the Norse. Besides, he added with a calculating look, a man who protects his sister's honor is one I might consider worthy of an alliance. Below, the Saxon force began to advance up the narrow path. Peder turned to Thora. Stay back from the front line, he instructed. If we fall, make for the mountains. There are caves where you can hide until help comes from other settlements. I won't run, she insisted. You'll do as your Jarl commands, he countered, then softened his tone. I didn't bring you home to lose you in your first battle. The clash was brutal but brief. The Saxons, unaccustomed to fighting on such steep terrain, struggled to maintain formation as Norse axes and swords rained down upon them. Lord Edwin, seeing his men faltering, called a retreat after less than an hour of fighting. As the Saxons withdrew to their ships, leaving a dozen dead behind, a strange silence fell over the Norse warriors. Then a cheer went up, starting with Ulf's men but quickly spreading to all. The Saxons flee, shouted one of the younger warriors. The gods favor Jarl Peder. Peder knew better than to trust this victory. They'll be back, he warned Ulf as they watched the ships pull away. With more men next time. Then we'll be ready, Ulf replied. All Norse settlements stand together against Saxon raiders. It has always been thus. That evening, as the wounded were tended and the dead prepared for burial, Peder found himself oddly at peace despite the day's violence. His leadership had been tested and not found wanting. Even Ulf seemed to regard him with newfound respect. After the evening meal, Ulf approached Peder as he sat alone by the central hearth in the great hall. Your sister fights like a true shield maiden, the northern chieftain observed. Astrid's daughter indeed. She has surprised us all, Peder agreed. I came here thinking to claim a meek Christian-raised girl, Ulf admitted. I find instead a woman worthy of saga tales. He paused. I still desire the alliance our fathers discussed, but I see now it must be approached differently. How so? Let Thora remain here through the winter. Let her learn our ways fully, take her rightful place among her people. In the spring, I will return, not to claim a bride, but to properly court the daughter of Harald, if she will have me. Peder studied the man thoughtfully. And if she refuses? Then I will accept her choice with honor, and we will find another way to bind our settlements. Ulf smiled slightly. But I think she may not refuse, given time to know me better. After Ulf and his party departed the next day, Peder found Thora at their father's burial mound, placing wildflowers upon the freshly packed earth. Ulf has gone, she asked without turning. For now. He'll return in the spring. To claim his bride. There was a note of resignation in her voice. To court Harald's daughter properly, Peder corrected, if she is willing. Thora looked up in surprise. That's unexpected. It seems you've earned his respect. As you've earned the respect of our people. Peder sat beside her on the grassy mound. The Saxons may return before the winter storms make the seas impassable. We should prepare. They'll come, Thora confirmed. Edwin doesn't surrender what he considers his. Then we'll face him together. Brother and sister, children of Harald. Peder placed a hand on her shoulder. This is your home now, Thora. Not because of who you might marry, but because of who you are. As they looked out over the fjord, where the setting sun painted the waters gold and crimson, Peder felt the presence of their parents, Harald and Astrid, reunited in Valhalla, watching over their children. Mother used to sing an old Norse lullaby on the darkest nights, Thora said suddenly. About Heindel watching over the Bifrost Bridge. She said as long as I remembered that song, I would find my way home someday. And you have, Peder replied softly. Yes, she agreed, a smile finally warming her features. I have. The autumn winds carried the scent of snow from the mountains, heralding the coming winter. But within the settlement of Vestfold, a new warmth had taken hold, the warmth of family restored, of belonging reclaimed, of a heritage honored. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as their father had taught them, with courage, with honor, and with the unbreakable bonds of blood.